Sitting with your feelings and sitting in your feelings are two very different things, right? If we're sitting in our feelings, we're creating like a pity party, right? And it's okay to have those moments, right? It's okay to have those experiences. And that's usually going to come up through the journey of emotional processing. But this is where people get stuck. Your feelings are not there for you to create a little beef stew of disappointment, right? Sitting, you're not sitting in that energy to stay there, right? And when you sit with your feelings, this is the shift to becoming the conscious observer of your own experience, right? And there's so many layers to this, right? When you first become the observer, you're really going to just be observing yourself in emotional dysregulation, right? You're going to be starting to observe your pity parties. You're going to start to observe yourself sitting in the feelings, right? But that becomes the first step to you then starting to sit with your feelings and creating a safe container for yourself to actually release and move through your emotional space. Most people never really take this next step, right? They just keep creating emotional storms and then sitting in that energy. And then you're just emotionally brewing it. And then you go on a mental trip, and then the next thing comes up and you go through your same emotional storm, right? This is not processing your emotions, right? This is not doing anything. You're not doing anything by sitting in your emotions, by throwing a pity party. You're just literally being in that energy, right? When you start to move into the role of the observer of your own emotions, right? This is when you become a conscious participant in your own healing journey. This is where you really start to make space for those emotions. And again, when you first start this, you're not going to be able to do, anything. Like you're going to literally just be observing yourself going AWOL, right? You're going to notice yourself in the emotional distress, right? But as you keep going down that journey, right, then you can start catching yourself in these moments, and then you're able to start looking at your emotional space and seeing, okay, this thing, right, is coming up again. What does it mean, right? Why is it here? What's the message? What is the pain teaching me? Let me sit with that. Let me look at it. Where is it coming from, right? This is now you holding the container for your own emotional experience, right? This is what also pulls you out of the state of having an emotional experience and then like looking for somebody else to hold it for you. Not that we cannot have emotionally safe containers, right? Or people containing and holding emotionally safe space for us. That's very important to have that. But you also need to learn how to do that for yourself. So the more you step into this, you start learning what it means to hold your own emotional space. So then you really step from like the observer to the processor, right? Once you become, aware of how to truly process your emotions, right, then you really do step into a state of being able to self-regulate your emotional space, right? Because now you're able to like understand, pick apart your emotions, see where they're coming from, why they're coming up, what's triggering you, what does it mean, right? That's all part of the processing. Then you step into that space of being able to regulate your emotions and then hold space for the emotions that are coming up for you, right? And be able to move through them and release them instead of living in them, right? You're not meant to live in that emotional space. You're meant to move through it and release it, right? The more you work through this emotional space, right, then you're in control of your own well-being and experiences, right? And then this is also how you start creating emotionally stable environments, emotionally stable relationships, emotionally stable connections, and using your voice in emotionally unsafe situations or in emotionally unstable situations, right? Learning how to remove yourself from those situations. So then you really have the ability to apply that to your environment, right? When you're just sitting in your feelings, you're sitting in victim mentality, right? Because you're sitting in a place of like, oh, this thing is so frustrating, right? And that's when you're living in that reactive consciousness state, right? You're living in a place of reaction versus response in your environment. So then you're going to have this emotional trigger to everything that's happening around you, everything that somebody says, everything that somebody does, right? Because you're having emotional reactions to everything around you because you're seeing everything as your emotional experience because you haven't learned your own emotional state. And this is really where we get in a place of trying to fix things around us, right? We want to fix the environment to make our emotional space better instead of self-regulating and emotionally regulating ourselves in the environment, right? This is where you find inner peace, right? It's not something external, right? It's finding that peace no matter where you are. And that's why I say like emotional freedom truly is the key to your spiritual transcendence, right? Because our emotional state is what keeps us confined to states of suffering and limitations and beliefs that are not ours and conditioning that's not for us, right? So that really is the key to your internal switch, right? If you are someone who sits in your feelings and throws an emotional pity party every time something happens instead of working through your feelings, this is a call to you to step deeper into the position of the observer, right? Start noticing, because there is a pattern. There absolutely is a pattern to your emotional irregulation. There's a reason you're creating things in your environment that are creating an emotional reaction so that you can work through that and so that you can overcome that. And not that situation, right? This is the thing, we get so attached to our external environment, right? And you can be like, F this thing, whatever, right? Like, get this out of my field. You're going to attract another version of the same emotional distress, because what's showing up in the physical is just an expression of the emotional experience we're moving through and the, internal experience we're moving through. We are literally creating our reality, right? So there's a reason you've created this specific environment for yourself to move through. So instead of sitting there and being like hanging out in Eeyore vibes, right? This is when you have to start really sitting with, why is this coming up? Why am I sitting in this emotion? That's the switch. When you go, why am I sitting in this emotion? You've now made the switch from being in your feelings to being with your feelings. That's the switch. And yeah, that's the first step. But as soon as you continue to be more intentional about that, then you start to be more in control of your own experience, right? And then ultimately you can come to a place where things just literally don't affect you like that. And it's not like you don't have emotional experience, right? You're always going to have an emotional experience. It's not about that. It's about making space for your emotions and then regulating yourself so that you can show up in the environment and you can learn the lessons and you can overcome whatever that emotion is bringing up for you. It's happening for a reason, right? Look at it. And this is the key to freeing yourself from feeling overwhelmed by emotions, right? This is a journey. People cling to their emotional states. I used to be a highly emotionally unstable person, right? I did not know what it meant to be emotionally regulated. I didn't even know it was a thing, right? It was this thing I was like longing for and didn't know, right? Like I wanted to be in control of myself. I wanted to not be overcome by my emotional experience, right? It takes deep, intentional work to free yourself from that reality. And I'm telling you, it's 100% worth it. The freedom of emotional regulation and not being constantly affected by your reality, right? Because you're unstable is like truly the greatest gift you can give yourself. And it's so easy to justify staying in our emotional states, right? And we've come up with words to keep people there. And you claim ownership, right? I have anxiety, right? You've claimed ownership over anxiety. And you know what, Flo? I am diagnosed with anxiety. Cool, honey. I've been diagnosed with a lot of things. I've been diagnosed with a laundry list of health issues. I'm the healthiest I've ever been in my life. I lived in anxiety. I used to have panic attacks. I used to get so energetically and emotionally overwhelmed, I did not know how to hold my own being. I used to go into blackout rage in a switch a switch went off and I went into blackout rage. So if you want to sit here and say, Flo, I am anxious. I have anxiety. Okay, cool. Keep the label. Go ahead. Keep your label. Keep your lie that is holding you to a false reality instead of stepping into your power and stepping into your truth and claiming ownership over your own consciousness and self-regulation. That's your choice. You can do whatever you want to do. Do you know how much of my life that people have said, oh, Flo, you're so good at this, or you're such a good communicator, or you seem so this, right? It's easy for you, right? This is one funny one that people say, oh, it's easy for you. How do you stay so healthy? Oh, or how do you stay so healthy? And then let me make fun of the way that you eat, right? I'm telling you right now, there is nothing about me that is an accident. Everything about me is intentional. I didn't just happen this way. I didn't have a good upbringing. I didn't just have the right circumstances or the right words to say. No, I did not come like this. I am self-made. I am self-chosen. I chose what I was worth and I became that. It's a choice. It is a choice. Do you know how many people have tried to sit there and tell me how easy I've had it without knowing anything about my story and just seeing who I am and making up some story in their mind so that they don't have to face their own lie? I do not with that anymore. I'm not the one. I am not the one, honey. There is nothing accidental about who I am. And you can choose that, or you can continue to choose to live in these stories that the world is against you. You had it so hard. You're the only one, right? You're the only one who had it so hard because of this, because of that, because of this, because of that, right? Your life is so hard because of this. So I have never been able to this because my life is this. Get off your high horse, take responsibility for your life, and stop treating yourself like a victim of your own story.